Inside the Hells Angels' secret empire. Drugs, wars, and raids. They call themselves motorcycle enthusiasts, riding for freedom and brotherhood. But behind the roar of their engines, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club hides a dark world of drugs, violence, and global crime. From bloody gang wars to billion-dollar drug empires, uncover the truth about one of the world's most notorious biker gangs. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is known for its iconic leather vests, roaring Harley-Davidsons, and a worldwide brotherhood that spans over 60 years. They say they're just a group of riders who love the open road, organizing rallies and charity events. But law enforcement across the globe tells a different story, one of drug trafficking, brutal violence, and organized crime. From the streets of Copenhagen to the ports of South Africa, the Hells Angels have been linked to some of the most shocking criminal incidents in modern history. In this story, we'll dive into their alleged crimes, explore the global reach, and reveal the truth behind their outlaw reputation. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club or Global Crime Syndicate. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, with their roaring Harley-Davidsons and iconic leather vests, have been a symbol of rebellion and freedom since their founding in 1948 in California. They describe themselves as a brotherhood of motorcycle enthusiasts who organize rallies, charity rides, and social events. However, police and intelligence agencies worldwide paint a darker picture, labeling them an outlaw motorcycle gang involved in drug trafficking, violence, and extortion. With chapters in over 50 countries, the Hells Angels story is one of global reach, fierce rivalries, and relentless law enforcement crackdowns. This is the tale of their alleged criminal empire, spanning the United States, Canada, Denmark, the Netherlands, and South Africa. Origins and public image. The Hells Angels began in Fontana, California, after World War II, when veterans sought camaraderie and adventure on the open road. By the 1960s, they expanded internationally, starting with New Zealand in 1961 and later Europe, Australia, and beyond. Today, they boast thousands of members across hundreds of chapters. The club insists they're misunderstood, a group of riders passionate about motorcycles, not crime. They point to their charity events and community rides as proof. Yet, law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Department of Justice, classify them as a criminal organization, accusing them of running sophisticated networks of drug smuggling, gun running, and violent crime. United States. The heart of the Hells Angels as the birthplace of HAMC, the United States hosts 92 chapters with over 800 members. The U.S. Department of Justice labels them an outlaw motorcycle gang, alleging they earn up to $1 billion annually from drug sales, particularly methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana. They're also accused of extortion, robbery, and contract killing. A notable incident occurred in 2001 in Mesa, Arizona, when Hells Angels members, including Paul Merle Eichade, murdered Yvonne Garcia, a mother of 6, for disrespecting the club during a party. Eichade fled to Argentina but was extradited in 2018 and faced trial. The Hells Angels' alliances with crime families like the Gambino and Aryan Brotherhood, and rivalries with gangs like the Bandidos and Mongols, have fueled violent clashes, including bombings and shootings. Despite these allegations, the club maintains that such acts are the work of rogue individuals, not the organization. The Quebec Biker War in Canada. The Hells Angels operate 34 chapters with 1,260 members, classified as an outlaw gang by the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada. The 1990s saw the brutal Quebec Biker War, a bloody conflict with the Rock Machine Gang over drug trafficking turf. From 1994 to 2002, the war left over 150 dead, including bystanders, with bombings, shootings, and stabbings. In 2002, Canadian prosecutors tried to declare HAMC a criminal organization under new anti-gang laws, targeting members like Stephen Lindsay and Raymond Bonner. The club's defense. They argue these crimes were committed by individuals, not sanctioned by the HAMC. Law enforcement's efforts, including raids and arrests, have disrupted their operations, but the club remains active in Canada's drug trade. Denmark. The Nordic Biker War. Denmark's Hells Angels, established in Copenhagen in 1980, were at the center of two major gang wars. The Copenhagen Biker War, 1983-1985, pitted HAMC against Bullshit MC, resulting in 10 deaths, including the assassinations of bullshit leaders like Henning Norbert Knudsen, shot dead in 1984. The Nordic Biker War, 1994-1997, was even deadlier, as Hells Angels fought the Bandidos for control of Scandinavia's drug trade. Key incidents included a 1996 rocket attack on a Copenhagen Hells Angels clubhouse, killing 2, and the murder of Bandidos member Ulf Larsen at Copenhagen Airport. The war ended with a 1997 peace agreement, but not before 11 murders and 74 attempted murders. More recently, in 2023, Hells Angels were linked to drug smuggling at the port of Aarhus and a fatal shooting in Christiania's cannabis trade war. The club denies orchestrating these crimes, claiming they're unfairly targeted. Netherlands. A historic ban. The Hells Angels arrived in the Netherlands in 1978, gaining control over much of the country's cocaine and ecstasy trade, as well as prostitution. A shocking case involved member Louis Hageman, convicted in 2003 for the 1984 murder of a mother and her 2 daughters. In 2005, police raids across Amsterdam and other cities seized grenades, a flamethrower, and €70,000 in cash, leading to arrests for drug trafficking and murder. The Netherlands made history in 2019 by banning the Hells Angels entirely, calling them a danger to public order. The club protested, arguing the ban violated their freedom of association, but the ruling stood, severely limiting their operations. Rivalries with the Mongols and others have also sparked violence, like a 2016 brawl in Rotterdam. South Africa. Drugs and nightclub violence. The Hells Angels established their first chapter in Johannesburg in 1993, quickly becoming tied to the bouncer mafia, controlling nightclubs and drug trafficking. They introduced methamphetamine to South Africa in the late 1990s, capitalizing on easy access to ephedrine. In 1999, hitman Andre Vogel linked HAMC to a drug syndicate behind the murder of bouncer Billy Van Vuren, killed with 32 shots in 1997. A 2002 raid in Johannesburg uncovered a drug lab, firearms, and stolen superbikes, leading to the arrest of chapter president Edward Jacobs. In 2006, member Alexander Beely was extradited to Russia for smuggling 224 kilograms of ephedrine. The Hells Angels claim these are isolated incidents, but police raids and arrests continue to target the Gauteng chapters. Rivalries and law enforcement impact. The Hells Angels' fiercest rivals include the Bandidos, Outlaws, and Mongols, with conflicts often erupting over drug territories. These rivalries have led to deadly wars, like the Nordic Biker War and Quebec Biker War, costing hundreds of lives. Law enforcement has responded with aggressive tactics, raids, arrests, and bans. Belgium declared HAMC an illegal militia in 1999, and the Netherlands' 2019 ban set a global precedent. In the US, federal policies block foreign Hells Angels from entering due to their criminal designation. These actions have disrupted the club's operations, but the global network remains resilient, adapting through legitimate businesses like tattoo parlors and security firms to launder money. The defense of the Hells Angels consistently deny being a criminal organization, emphasizing their love for motorcycles and community. They argue that law enforcement exaggerates their activities, targeting them for the nonconformist image. They point to charity rides and social events as evidence of their positive contributions. However, the sheer volume of arrests, convictions, and seized drugs and weapons undermines their claims, keeping them under intense scrutiny. From California's highways to Copenhagen's ports, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club has left a trail of controversy. Their alleged crimes, drug trafficking, murder, extortion, span decades and continents, clashing with rivals and law enforcement alike. While they insist they're just riders chasing freedom, the evidence of the criminal activities is hard to ignore. What do you think? Are the Hells Angels a misunderstood brotherhood, or a global criminal empire hiding behind chrome and leather? The Hells Angels in Denmark. A saga of bikes, blood, and busts. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, is one of the most infamous biker groups in the world, known for their leather vests, roaring motorcycles, and a reputation that swings between rebellious freedom and organized crime. In Denmark, the Hells Angels have carved out a particularly notorious legacy since their arrival in 1980. Law enforcement labels them a criminal organization, accusing them of drug trafficking, violent turf wars, and extortion. The club, however, insists they're just a group of motorcycle enthusiasts unfairly targeted by police. This story dives into the Hells Angels establishment in Denmark, their alleged crimes, major incidents like the Nordic Biker War, and the relentless efforts of Danish authorities to curb their influence. Establishment in Denmark. The Hells Angels first roared into Denmark on December 30, 1980, when a coalition of local biker gangs, including the Galloping Goose, Nomads, Iron Skulls, and Dirty Angels, united as Onion and MC and became the first Scandinavian Hells Angels chapter. They set up the base in Copenhagen, with clubhouses in the Titanged and Nørrebro districts. The club quickly grew, attracting members with a love for motorcycles and a taste for rebellion. By the 1980s, they were a dominant force in Denmark's biker scene, but their rise sparked conflicts with rival groups and drew the attention of police. The Hells Angels presented themselves as a brotherhood hosting motorcycle rallies, parties, and charity events. They claimed their club was about freedom and camaraderie, not crime. But Danish authorities, including Kripos, the Criminal Investigation Unit, saw a different picture. One of a highly organized group involved in illegal activities. With chapters now across Denmark, including Copenhagen, Aalborg, and Odense, the Hells Angels' influence grew, as did their clashes with rivals and law enforcement. Major criminal activities. Danish police have accused the Hells Angels of running sophisticated criminal operations, particularly drug trafficking, violence, and extortion. The club is alleged to control a significant share of Denmark's illegal drug trade, dealing in cannabis, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Their stronghold in Copenhagen's Freetown Christiania, a counterculture enclave, has been a hub for cannabis sales, with the Hells Angels reportedly using violence to maintain dominance. They've also been linked to extortion rackets, intimidating businesses and individuals for money, and violent attacks to settle scores with rivals. The Hells Angels' criminal activities often revolve around their rivalries with other gangs, such as Bullshit MC, the Bandidos, and more recently, Loyal to Familia, LTF. These conflicts have led to some of Denmark's most violent episodes, with shootings, bombings, and stabbings marking their turf wars. The club's ability to operate through legitimate fronts, like tattoo parlors and security firms, has also raised suspicions of money laundering. The Copenhagen Biker War from 1983 to 1985. One of the earliest and bloodiest chapters in the Hells Angels' Danish history was the Copenhagen Biker War, fought against Bullshit MC from 1983 to 1985. The conflict began when Bullshit MC, based in Christiania, challenged the Hells Angels' control over Copenhagen's drug trade. On September 24, 1983, 3 Bullshit members entered a Hells Angels hangout at the Sopromenaden restaurant. 2. Søren Grabo Grander and Flemming Hall Jensen were killed in a knife and bottle attack. Hells Angels member Bent, Blondie, Svein Nielsen was convicted for the murders. The war escalated with a series of assassinations. In May 1984, Bullshit President Henning Norbert Makrellen Knudsen was shot dead outside his home, allegedly by Hells Angel Jonk Nielsen, who fled to Canada but was later extradited and sentenced to 16 years. 2 more Bullshit leaders, Pal, Lilbra, Blabjerg and Anker Walter Hovding, Marcus, were killed in 1985, along with an innocent bystander, Lars Michael Larsen. By the war's end, 10 people were dead, 8 from Bullshit MC, 1 Hells Angel, and 1 civilian. The Hells Angels emerged victorious, absorbing rival gangs like the Black Sheep and solidifying the dominance. The Nordic Biker War, 1994–1997. The Hells Angels' next major conflict was the Nordic Biker War, a brutal struggle against the Bandidos for control of Scandinavia's drug trade. In Denmark, the war began on December 25, 1995, when Bandidos members were attacked at a Copenhagen nightclub. The violence peaked in 1996 with a series of high-profile incidents. On March 10, 1996, Hells Angels members shot at Bandidos returning from Helsinki at Copenhagen Airport, killing Ulf Larsson and wounding 3 others. 6 Hells Angels were convicted, with sentences totaling 53 years. In October 1996, a Bandidos prospect, Niels Poulsen, fired an anti-tank rocket at a Hells Angels clubhouse in Copenhagen during a party, killing member Louis Lind Nielsen and guest Jana Krohn. Poulsen received a life sentence. Other attacks included shootings in Horsens and Aalborg, and the murder of Hells Angels member Kim Thrisso Svensson in 1997. The war ended with a televised peace agreement on September 25, 1997, between Hells Angels leader Bent, Blondie, Svein Nielsen and Bandidos Jim Tindal. The conflict left 11 dead, 74 attempted murders, and 96 wounded across Scandinavia, cementing the Hells Angels' fearsome reputation. Recent incidents and key figures in the 2000s and beyond, the Hells Angels continued to clash with rivals and police. In 2001, Hells Angels members, including Jorn, Jonk, Nielsen, were convicted of beating and stabbing Bandidos associate Flemming Jensen to death in Aalborg. In 2007, the Hells Angels formed AK-81, Always Ready 81, a support group to counter immigrant street gangs in the hash trade. In 2008, an AK-81 member killed 19-year-old Osman Nuri Dogan in Tingbjerg, escalating tensions. In 2023, the Hells Angels were implicated in infiltrating the port of Aarhus, Denmark's largest commercial port, where around 30 employees were linked to the club, using shipping containers to smuggle cocaine. That same year, a shooting in Christiania's Pusher Street, tied to a feud with Loyal to Familia, left 1 dead and 4 injured. Key figures like Jorn, Jonk, Nielsen, a central player in the Copenhagen Biker War, and Bent, Blondie, Svein Nielsen, who brokered the Nordic Biker War peace, have shaped the club's violent legacy. Law enforcement responses. Danish authorities have cracked down hard on the Hells Angels. In 2016, police raided a Hells Angels joint factory in Christiania, arresting 9, including a full member, for producing 140,000 cannabis cigarettes. In 2017, a raid on the Nomads chapter in Amager led to 15 arrests for cannabis trafficking. In 2023, a joint Danish-Spanish operation arrested 5 Hells Angels associates for smuggling 3.5 tons of hashish from Spain to Denmark, seizing €59,000 in cash. Police also investigated a 2023 explosion at a Copenhagen Hells Angels clubhouse as a deliberate act by rivals. Denmark briefly banned motorcycle clubs from owning clubhouses in 1997, but the law was repealed. Krippos continues to classify HAMC as a criminal organization, citing hundreds of convictions for violence, drug crimes, and extortion. These efforts have disrupted the club's operations, but their network remains active. The Hells Angels defense deny being a criminal organization, insisting they're a motorcycle club unfairly targeted for their rebellious image. They highlight charity rides and community events, claiming police exaggerate isolated incidents by individual members. However, the scale of convictions, seized drugs, and violent incidents makes the defense a tough sell. Since their arrival in Denmark in 1980, the Hells Angels have been synonymous with both biker culture and organized crime. From the bloody Copenhagen and Nordic biker wars to modern drug busts at the port of Aarhus, their alleged activities, drug trafficking, violence, and extortion, have left a trail of chaos. Danish police continue their fight, but the Hells Angels' resilience keeps them in the spotlight. Are they just riders chasing the open road, or a criminal empire hiding behind chrome? The answer remains as complex as their legacy. The Hells Angels and the global drug trade, a web of smuggling and busts. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, is known worldwide for their leather vests, loud motorcycles, and a reputation that blends rebellion with infamy. While they claim to be a brotherhood of motorcycle enthusiasts who organize rallies and charity rides, law enforcement agencies across the globe tell a different story. They accuse the Hells Angels of running a vast drug trafficking network, dealing in methamphetamine, cocaine, and cannabis, among other substances. From secret labs to international smuggling routes, the Hells Angels have allegedly built a billion-dollar drug empire, clashing with police and rivals alike. This narrative explores their involvement in drug trafficking in the United States, the Netherlands, and South Africa, detailing how they produce, smuggle, and distribute drugs, major law enforcement busts, and the impact on their reputation and operations. The Hells Angels drug empire. The Hells Angels are accused of being one of the world's most sophisticated drug trafficking organizations. Police and intelligence agencies, including the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, claim the club earns up to $1 billion annually from drug sales. Their operations span production, smuggling, and distribution, often using the global network of chapters to move drugs across borders. The club allegedly produces methamphetamine in clandestine labs, smuggles cocaine through ports and air routes, and controls cannabis markets in areas like Copenhagen's Freetown Christiania. They're also accused of laundering drug money through legitimate businesses like tattoo parlors, gyms, and security firms. Despite these allegations, the Hells Angels insist they're unfairly targeted, claiming any drug crimes are the work of individual members, not the club as a whole. United States. Methamphetamine and massive profits. As the birthplace of the Hells Angels in 1948, the United States is a hub for their alleged drug trafficking, with 92 chapters and over 800 members. The FBI accuses the club of producing and distributing methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, and other drugs, generating enormous profits. The Hells Angels reportedly run secret labs to manufacture methamphetamine, using chemicals like pseudoephedrine sourced from international suppliers. They also transport cocaine and heroin, often working with crime syndicates like the Mexican Mafia. A major bust occurred in 2001 when an investigation into an international drug smuggling ring uncovered ties between South African and American Hells Angels. Methamphetamine, hidden in stuffed toys, was mailed from South Africa to Flagstaff, Arizona, for distribution across the U.S. American Hells Angel Greg Serdukan pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 years in prison in 2002. The operation revealed how the club used seemingly innocent methods, like speed mail, to move drugs undetected. In another case, Paul Merle Eyeshade, a Hells Angel from Arizona, was charged with drug trafficking and racketeering in 2007, alongside a murder charge. He fled to Argentina but was extradited in 2018, highlighting the club's global reach. These busts have damaged the Hells Angels' reputation, reinforcing their image as a criminal organization in the eyes of law enforcement and the public. The U.S. State Department's designation of HAMC as a known criminal organization has led to strict policies, like barring foreign members from entering the country. Despite this, the club's U.S. operations remain active, adapting through new smuggling routes and alliances with smaller gangs like the Sons of Silence. Netherlands cocaine and ecstasy hub. The Hells Angels established their first chapter in Amsterdam in 1978, quickly becoming major players in the Netherlands drug trade. Dutch police accuse the club of smuggling cocaine from South America through terrorist organizations and cartels in Curaçao and Colombia, as well as producing and distributing ecstasy and illegal firearms. The Netherlands' busy ports, like Rotterdam, provide ideal entry points for drug shipments, which the Hells Angels allegedly exploit using their network. In October 2005, a massive police raid targeted Hells Angels clubhouses in Amsterdam, Haarlem, and other cities, with Belgian police raiding 2 locations across the border. Authorities seized a grenade launcher, a flamethrower, 20 handguns, and €70,000 in cash. The operation, which followed a year-long investigation, led to multiple arrests for international trafficking of cocaine and ecstasy, as well as murder and money laundering charges. The raids exposed the Hells Angels' deep involvement in the Netherlands' drug trade, with the club allegedly controlling the ecstasy market, a drug popular in Europe's nightlife scene. The Netherlands made history in 2019 by banning the Hells Angels entirely, calling them a danger to public order. This ban, the first of its kind globally, severely disrupted their operations, forcing members to operate more covertly. The club protested, arguing the ban violated their rights, but the ruling stood. The busts and ban have tarnished the public image, painting them as a criminal syndicate rather than a motorcycle club, yet the drug networks persist through alliances with other groups. South Africa methamphetamine pioneers. The Hells Angels arrived in South Africa in 1993, starting with a chapter in Johannesburg. They quickly became linked to the Bouncer Mafia, a criminal network controlling nightclubs and drug trafficking. The club is credited with introducing methamphetamine to South Africa in the late 1990s, capitalizing on easy access to ephedrine, a key ingredient. They allegedly set up clandestine labs in Gauteng to produce the drug, which was then distributed locally and internationally. A significant bust in November 2002 saw South African police raid Hells Angels properties in Johannesburg, targeting a drug lab in Sandton. 3 members, including chapter president Edward Jacobs, were arrested for operating the lab, which produced methcathinone, a methamphetamine variant. Police seized cocaine, MDMA, an unlicensed shotgun, rifles, and chemicals, along with stolen superbikes. Another major case involved Alexander Bely, a Hells Angel who immigrated from the Soviet Union. In 2006, he was arrested for smuggling 224 kilograms of ephedrine to Russia, disguised as bath salts, and laundering over $1.2 million. He was extradited to Russia in 2013 and convicted. These busts exposed the Hells Angels' role in South Africa's growing drug problem, particularly methamphetamine, which fueled addiction and crime in cities like Johannesburg. The club's reputation suffered, with media and police portraying them as a dangerous gang. However, they've continued operations, using their control over nightclubs to distribute drugs and launder money, despite ongoing police pressure. Impact on reputation and operations. The Hells Angels' alleged drug trafficking has cemented their image as a global criminal organization, overshadowing their claims of being a motorcycle club. Major busts in the US, Netherlands, and South Africa have led to hundreds of arrests, millions in seized assets, and high-profile convictions, like those of Greg Serdukan and Alexander Bely. These crackdowns have disrupted their operations, forcing them to adapt by using new smuggling methods, like hiding drugs in shipping containers or stuffed toys, and relying on alliances with other gangs or crime syndicates. Law enforcement actions, including the Netherlands ban and US travel restrictions, have limited the club's mobility and public presence. Yet, the global network remains resilient, with chapters quickly reorganizing after busts. The Hells Angels' reputation as outlaws has both hurt and helped them. It attracts recruits drawn to their rebellious image but invites intense scrutiny from authorities. Their rivalries with groups like the Bandidos and Mongols often escalate drug-related conflicts, leading to violence that further tarnishes their image. The Hells Angels motorcycle club's alleged drug trafficking spans continents, from methamphetamine labs in the US to cocaine smuggling in the Netherlands and ephedrine networks in South Africa. Major busts, like the 2002 Arizona-South Africa ring and the 2005 Netherlands raids, reveal a sophisticated operation that law enforcement struggles to dismantle. While the club insists they're just riders, the evidence of drugs, cash, and weapons tells a different story. Their drug trade has made them infamous, but it's also their Achilles heel, drawing relentless police attention. Can the Hells Angels ever escape their outlaw shadow, or is it the fuel that keeps their engines roaring? The Hells Angels' violent rivalries, blood, bikes, and turf war. Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, is a global name synonymous with chrome motorcycles, leather vests, and a fierce reputation. They call themselves a brotherhood of riders who live for the open road, organizing rallies and charity events. But law enforcement and rival gangs see them differently, as an outlaw motorcycle gang entangled in violent conflicts over drugs, territory, and power. The Hells Angels' rivalries with groups like the Bandidos and Outlaws have sparked some of the deadliest biker wars in history, leaving trails of blood and bodies across countries like Denmark, Germany, and Belgium. From the Copenhagen Biker War to the Nordic Biker War, these clashes have defined the club's outlaw image and triggered intense police crackdowns. This story explores the causes, key events, outcomes, and lasting impact of these violent feuds, told in simple and clear English. The roots of rivalry. Hells Angels, founded in California in 1948, grew into a global network with chapters in over 50 countries. Their rapid expansion brought them into conflict with other motorcycle gangs vying for control of lucrative illegal markets, especially drug trafficking. Rivalries with the Bandidos, Outlaws, Mongols, and others often erupted over territory, drug routes, or perceived disrespect. These conflicts weren't just about money. They were about dominance, pride, and survival in the brutal world of outlaw bikers. The Hells Angels' willingness to use extreme violence, from shootings to bombings, cemented their fearsome reputation but also made them a top target for law enforcement. The club insists these acts are by individuals, not the organization, and claims police exaggerate their role to tarnish their image. Denmark. The Copenhagen Biker War, 1983–1985. The Hells Angels arrived in Denmark in 1980, establishing their first chapter in Copenhagen. Their rise to power sparked the Copenhagen Biker War, 1983–1985, against Bullshit MC, a rival gang based in Copenhagen's Freetown, Christiania. The war began over control of the city's drug trade, particularly cannabis. On September 24, 1983, 3 Bullshit members entered a Hells Angels hangout at the Sopromenaden restaurant. 2. Soren Grabo Grander and Flemming Hall Jensen were killed in a knife and bottle attack. Hells Angel Bent, Blondie, Svein Nielsen was convicted of the murders. The violence escalated with targeted assassinations. In May 1984, Bullshit president Henning Norbert Makrellen Knudsen was shot dead outside his home, allegedly by Hells Angel Jonk Nielsen, who fled to Canada but was later extradited and sentenced to 16 years. In 1985, Bullshit leaders Pal, Lilbra, Blabjerg and Anker Walter Hovding Marquis were killed, along with bystander Lars Michael Larsen, in separate attacks. By the war's end, 10 people were dead, 8 Bullshit members, 1 Hells Angel, and 1 civilian. The Hells Angels won, absorbing rival gangs like the Black Sheep and solidifying their control over Copenhagen's underworld. The war painted them as a ruthless force, prompting Danish police to label them a criminal organization and increase surveillance. Denmark. The Nordic Biker War, 1994–1997. A decade later, the Hells Angels faced a bigger foe in the Nordic Biker War, 1994–1997, a bloody conflict with the Bandidos over Scandinavia's drug trade. In Denmark, the war kicked off on December 25, 1995, when Bandidos members were attacked at a Copenhagen nightclub. The violence exploded in 1996. On March 10, 1996, Hells Angels members shot at Bandidos at Copenhagen Airport, killing Ulf Larsen and wounding 3 others. 6 Hells Angels were convicted, receiving sentences totaling 53 years. In October 1996, Bandidos prospect Niels Poulsen fired an anti-tank rocket at a Hells Angels clubhouse in Copenhagen during a party, killing member Louis Lind Nielsen and guest Jana Krohn. Poulsen was sentenced to life in prison. The war saw further bloodshed, including the 1997 murder of Hells Angel Kim Thrisso Svensson in Aalborg and a bombing of the Bandidos clubhouse in Dolby. By the time Hells Angels leader Bent, Blondie, Svein Nielsen and Bandidos Jim Tindane signed a peace deal on September 25, 1997, broadcast on Danish TV, the war had claimed 11 lives, with 74 attempted murders and 96 injuries across Scandinavia. The conflict's brutality shocked Denmark, leading to a 1997 law banning motorcycle clubs from owning clubhouses, later repealed. The Hells Angels' image as a violent gang grew, and police intensified raids and monitoring, though the club maintained their actions were defensive, not orchestrated. Germany turf battles and murders. The Hells Angels established their first German chapter in Hamburg in 1973, growing to 69 chapters with 1,400 members. Their rivalries with the Bandidos have fueled ongoing violence, often over drug trafficking and brothel control. In 2006, Hells Angels raided a Bandidos clubhouse in Stur, assaulting and robbing 5 members. 3 Hells Angels received jail sentences in 2008. In 2007, 5 Hells Angels attacked a Bandidos member in Berlin's Hohenschönhausen, with shots fired and police deploying 19 vehicles to intervene. The same year, Bandidos members killed Hells Angel Robert K. in Ibbenbüren, leading to life sentences for 2 Bandidos. A high-profile incident occurred in 2016 when Gießen chapter boss Agan Makuk, of Turkish origin, was shot dead at his clubhouse, reportedly due to internal rivalries with the Frankfurt chapter. Hundreds of Hells Angels attended his funeral, showcasing their unity. These clashes reinforced Germany's view of HAMC as a criminal organization, prompting raids like the 2000 operation that seized 50 kilograms of narcotics and arrested 17 suspects. The violence also led to bans on chapter symbols in cities like Hamburg, though the club argued these measures unfairly targeted their lifestyle. Belgium clubhouse raids and triple murder. Belgium's Hells Angels chapter, formed in 1997, was declared an illegal private militia by a Ghent court in 1999, the first such ruling globally. Their rivalry with the Outlaws sparked intense violence. On October 4, 2009, Hells Angels and their allies, the Red Devils, raided an Outlaws clubhouse in Kortrijk, wounding 3 outlaws in a shooting. The attack was retaliation for an Outlaws member pushing over a Red Devils motorcycle. 6 Hells Angels and 2 Red Devils were convicted of attempted murder, receiving sentences from 5 to 20 years. In 2011, Hells Angel Ali Apikchi shot dead 3 Outlaws members, Freddie Putt, Jeff Banken, and Michael Gerrikens, in Maasmechelen during an altercation at a tire shop opening. Apikchi was sentenced to 30 years for triple murder in 2015. These incidents led to police raids and increased scrutiny, with Belgium's ban setting a precedent for other countries. The Hells Angels claimed they acted in self-defense, but the violent image grew stronger, fueling calls for tougher laws. Impact on image and law enforcement. The Hells Angels' violent rivalries have shaped their image as a dangerous outlaw gang, overshadowing their claims of being a motorcycle club. The Copenhagen and Nordic biker wars showed their willingness to use extreme force, from rockets to assassinations, to crush rivals. In Germany and Belgium, shootings and murders tied to turf disputes with the Bandidos and Outlaws reinforced this perception. These conflicts have cost hundreds of lives, injured many more, and drawn public outrage, especially after civilian deaths. Law enforcement has responded aggressively. Denmark's temporary clubhouse ban and ongoing raids, like the 2016 Christiania bust, aim to disrupt HAMC operations. Germany's symbol bans and 2000 drug bust targeted the criminal networks. Belgium's 1999 ban and the Netherlands' 2019 nationwide ban, prompted by similar violence, have limited the club's public presence. These crackdowns have forced the Hells Angels to operate more covertly, using front businesses to maintain their activities. However, their resilience, reorganizing after arrests and maintaining global chapters, shows their ability to adapt, the Hells Angels' violent rivalries with gangs like the Bandidos and Outlaws have left a trail of destruction across Denmark, Germany, and Belgium. From the Copenhagen Biker Wars assassinations to the Nordic Biker Wars rocket attacks, these conflicts reveal a world of turf battles and vengeance. The club insists they're misunderstood riders, but the body count and police crackdowns tell a different story. Their outlaw image, forged in blood, has made them both feared and targeted, raising the question, are the Hells Angels warriors of the road or architects of chaos? Law enforcement versus the Hells Angels. A global crackdown. Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, is a name that echoes across continents, tied to gleaming motorcycles, leather vests, and a rebellious spirit. Founded in California in 1948, the club claims to be a brotherhood of riders who love the open road, organizing rallies and charity events. But law enforcement agencies worldwide see them differently, as a dangerous criminal organization running drugs, weapons, and violent schemes. From raids and arrests to outright bans, authorities have waged a relentless battle against the Hells Angels in countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, and Spain. This story explores how police and governments have targeted the Hells Angels, the evidence behind the criminal classification, major operations like Operation Casablanca and the Quebec Biker War, and the club's defiant response, all told in simple and clear English. Classifying the Hells Angels as a criminal organization. Law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Department of Justice, Canada's Criminal Intelligence Service, and Denmark's Kripos, classify the Hells Angels as an outlaw motorcycle gang and a criminal organization. They argue that the club operates like a mafia, with a hierarchical structure coordinating drug trafficking, extortion, gunrunning, and violence. Evidence includes seized drugs, weapons, and cash, convictions for murder and trafficking, and intercepted communications showing organized crime. Police also point to the club's global network, with chapters in over 50 countries, as a framework for smuggling and money laundering through fronts like tattoo parlors and security firms. The Hells Angels deny these claims, insisting they're a motorcycle club unfairly targeted for the nonconformist image. They argue that crimes are committed by individuals, not the organization, and that police exaggerate to justify crackdowns. Belgium. The first ban. Belgium's Hells Angels chapter, formed in 1997, faced swift action from authorities. In May 1999, a Ghent court made history by declaring the Hells Angels an illegal private militia, the first country to ban the club outright. The ruling, led by Judge Vincent Hawles, was based on evidence of the club's involvement in drug trafficking, weapons possession, and violent clashes with rivals like the Outlaws. Police cited the Hells Angels structure, requiring members to follow strict rules and engage in coordinated activities, as proof of a criminal organization. A key incident driving the ban was a 1999 investigation uncovering drug and weapons trafficking. In 2009, a raid by Hells Angels and their allies, the Red Devils, on an outlaws clubhouse in Kortrijk left 3 wounded in a shooting, leading to convictions for attempted murder. In 2011, Hells Angel Ali Apikchi killed 3 outlaws members in Maasmechelen, earning a 30-year sentence for triple murder in 2015. These violent acts, combined with drug busts, justified the ban. The Hells Angels argued the ruling violated their freedom of association, claiming the violence was defensive, but the ban stood, limiting their public operations and forcing them underground. Police raids and arrests continue to target their activities, keeping Belgium's Hells Angels under tight scrutiny. Netherlands. A nationwide ban. Hells Angels arrived in the Netherlands in 1978, establishing a strong presence in Amsterdam and other cities. Dutch police accused them of dominating the cocaine and ecstasy trade, smuggling drugs through ports like Rotterdam and running prostitution rings. In October 2005, a massive raid hit Hells Angels clubhouses in Amsterdam, Haarlem, and other cities, with Belgian police joining across the border. Authorities seized a grenade launcher, a flamethrower, 20 handguns, and €70,000 in cash, arresting members for cocaine and ecstasy trafficking, murder, and money laundering. The operation, following a year-long investigation, exposed the club's deep criminal ties. The decisive blow came on May 29, 2019, when a Utrecht court banned the Hells Angels entirely, the first country to outlaw the whole club. The court called them a danger to public order, citing evidence from raids, convictions, and violent incidents like a 2016 brawl with the Mongols in Rotterdam, where gunshots wounded one person. The ban prohibited HAMC activities, symbols, and gatherings, severely disrupting their operations. The Hells Angels protested, arguing the ban was unfair and based on isolated incidents, but the ruling held. Police continue to monitor members, who now operate covertly, using allies to maintain the drug networks. The ban has tarnished their image, painting them as a criminal syndicate rather than a motorcycle club. Canada. The Quebec Biker War and Legal Battle Sign Canada, the Hells Angels, with 34 chapters and 1,260 members, are classified as an outlaw motorcycle gang by the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada. The Quebec Biker War, 1994-2002, was a turning point, pitting the Hells Angels against the Rock Machine Gang over drug trafficking turf. The conflict left over 150 dead, including civilians, with bombings, shootings, and stabbings across Quebec. A key event was the 1995 murder of a drug dealer linked to the Rock Machine, pinned on Hells Angels members. Police responded with raids, seizing drugs, weapons, and cash, and arresting dozens of members. In 2002, Crown Prosecutor Graham Williams tried to declare HAMC a criminal organization under Canada's new anti-gang law, Bill C-24, targeting members Stephen, Tiger, Lindsay and Raymond, Razor, Bonner. The 3-year investigation gathered evidence of drug trafficking, extortion, and murders linked to the club's hierarchy. Though the case didn't fully succeed in labeling HAMC a criminal entity, it led to significant convictions and disrupted their operations. The Hells Angels claimed the crimes were individual acts, not club policy, and accused police of targeting them for their rebellious image. Ongoing raids and arrests, especially in Quebec and Ontario, keep the club under pressure, but the drug trade persists through new alliances and fronts. Spain. Operation Casablanca. The Hells Angels established chapters in Barcelona and Valencia in 1997, growing to 16 chapters. Spanish authorities accused them of drug trafficking, extortion, and running prostitution rings, often linked to their Mallorca chapter. Operation Casablanca, launched in 2011, was a major crackdown. On July 23, 2013, 200 National Police and Civil Guard officers raided 31 locations, arresting 25 people, including Mallorca chapter leader Frank Hanebut, a fugitive from Germany, and brothers Abdelghani and Khalil Yousufi. Police seized 10 cars, 4 motorcycles, €50,000 in cash, firearms, and drugs, uncovering a scheme to launder €300 million through a proposed Formula One track in Mallorca. The investigation revealed the Hells Angels smuggled cocaine and marijuana, extorted businesses, and bribed officials, including a civil guard sergeant and a Palma police officer. In 2023, 49 defendants faced trial, but 34, including Khalil Yousufi, took plea deals to avoid prison, paying fines like €36,720. Hanebut and 12 others were acquitted of belonging to a criminal organization, though one officer faced minor penalties. The Hells Angels claimed the charges were exaggerated, insisting their activities were legal, but the operation exposed the criminal reach, prompting stricter police surveillance and damaging their public image in Spain. Impact and the club's response. Law enforcement efforts have significantly impacted the Hells Angels. Belgium's 1999 ban and the Netherlands' 2019 ban set global precedents, limiting the club's ability to operate openly. Canada's raids during the Quebec Biker War and Spain's Operation Casablanca disrupted drug networks and led to high-profile arrests, seizing millions in assets. These actions rely on evidence like seized drugs, e.g., 50 kilograms in Germany's 2000 raid, weapons, and convictions for murder and trafficking, reinforcing the criminal organization label. The US even bars foreign Hells Angels from entering due to this designation. The Hells Angels respond by denying they're a criminal group, emphasizing their love for motorcycles and community events. They claim police target them for their outlaw image, exaggerating individual crimes to justify bans and raids. However, the volume of evidence, drugs, guns, and bodies, makes the defense challenging. These crackdowns have forced the club to adapt, using front businesses and allies to continue operations, but their reputation as a dangerous gang grows stronger, fueling public fear and police resolve. From Belgium's historic ban to Spain's Operation Casablanca, law enforcement's battle against the Hells Angels spans decades and continents. Raids, arrests, and bans in Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, and Spain have exposed a web of drugs, violence, and corruption, backed by hard evidence. The Hells Angels fight back, claiming they're just riders, but the seizures and convictions tell a darker story. These efforts have curbed their power, yet the club's resilience keeps them riding. Are they victims of a witch hunt, or is the law finally closing in on a global crime empire? The Hells Angels, rebels on wheels or criminal empire? The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, HAMC, is one of the most recognizable names in the world, with their roaring Harley-Davidsons, leather vests, and a reputation that swings between rugged freedom and ruthless crime. Founded in 1948 in California, the club has grown into a global network with chapters in over 50 countries. They present themselves as a brotherhood of motorcycle enthusiasts who live for the open road, organizing rallies, charity rides, and parties. Yet, law enforcement agencies label them a criminal organization, accusing them of drug trafficking, violence, and extortion. Caught between these two images, the Hells Angels story is a complex mix of rebellion and allegations. This final chapter explores their history, alleged crimes, public image, rivalries, law enforcement battles, and how the dual reputation shapes the global operations, told in simple and clear English. A brotherhood born in rebellion. Hells Angels began in Fontana, California, in 1948, when World War II veterans sought camaraderie and adventure through motorcycles. Named after a U.S. Air Force squadron, the club embraced a free-spirited lifestyle, riding Harley-Davidsons and building a tight-knit community. By the 1960s, they expanded internationally, starting with New Zealand in 1961, followed by Australia, Europe, and beyond. Today, they have thousands of members across hundreds of chapters, from Copenhagen to Johannesburg. The Hells Angels insist they're about brotherhood, not crime. They organize events like the annual World Run Rally, charity rides for children's hospitals, and community parties, portraying themselves as misunderstood rebels who value freedom over conformity. However, police and intelligence agencies, including the U.S. Department of Justice and Canada's Criminal Intelligence Service, see a darker side. They classify HAMC as an outlaw motorcycle gang, accusing them of running a global criminal network. Alleged crimes include drug trafficking, methamphetamine, cocaine, cannabis, gun running, extortion, and murder. Evidence includes seized drugs, weapons, and cash, as well as convictions for violent crimes. The Hells Angels counter that these are acts by individual members, not the club, and claim police target them for the nonconformist image. Alleged crimes and global reach. The Hells Angels' alleged criminal activities span continents, often tied to their control of illegal markets. In the United States, with 92 chapters, the FBI estimates they earn up to $1 billion annually from drug trafficking. A 2001 case saw American Hells Angel Greg Serdukan convicted for smuggling methamphetamine from South Africa to Arizona, hidden in stuffed toys. In Denmark, the club has dominated Copenhagen's cannabis trade in Freetown, Christiania, with a 2016 raid busting a joint factory, producing 140,000 cannabis cigarettes. In the Netherlands, 2005 raids uncovered a grenade launcher and drugs, linking the club to cocaine and ecstasy smuggling. In South Africa, the Hells Angels introduced methamphetamine in the 1990s, with a 2002 bust in Johannesburg seizing drugs and weapons from a lab run by chapter president Edward Jacobs. Violence is another hallmark of their alleged crimes, often tied to rivalries with gangs like the Bandidos and Outlaws. The Copenhagen Biker War, 1983-1985, in Denmark saw 10 deaths, including the assassination of Bullshit MC leader Henning Norbert Knudsen by Hells Angel Jonk Nielsen. The Nordic Biker War, 1994-1997, killed 11, with a 1996 rocket attack on a Copenhagen Hells Angels clubhouse claiming 2 lives. In Germany, a 2007 attack in Berlin left a Bandidos member injured, and in 2016, Gießen chapter boss Agen Mukyuk was murdered amid internal rivalries. In Belgium, Hells Angel Alia Peakchi killed 3 Outlaws members in 2011, earning a 30-year sentence. These incidents, fueled by disputes over drug turf and club honor, have solidified the Hells Angels outlaw image. The public image: riders, not criminals. Despite these allegations, the Hells Angels work hard to maintain a positive public image. They host high-profile events like motorcycle runs, toy drives, and fundraisers, often publicized on social media to show their community side. In the US, they've organized charity rides for veterans and children's causes. In Australia, they run tattoo parlors and gyms, presenting themselves as legitimate businessmen. In Denmark, they've held open house events at clubhouses to counter their violent reputation. The club argues that the 1% label, embracing their outsider status, doesn't mean they're criminals, just free spirits who reject mainstream rules. The Hells Angels also point to their strict membership process, requiring prospects to prove loyalty and love for motorcycling, as evidence of their focus on brotherhood. They claim police unfairly lump them with criminal gangs, using isolated incidents to smear the entire club. For example, after the 2019 Netherlands ban, they argued it violated their freedom of association, insisting most members are law-abiding riders. Law enforcement crackdowns. Law enforcement has responded to the Hells Angels with aggressive measures, viewing them as a global criminal threat. In Belgium, a 1999 court ruling declared them an illegal militia, citing drug trafficking and violence like the 2009 Kortrijk clubhouse raid. The Netherlands banned the entire club in 2019, the first country to do so, after raids like the 2005 operation that seized weapons and drugs. In Canada, the Quebec Biker War, 1994-2002, prompted a 2002 attempt to label HAMC a criminal organization, with raids disrupting the drug networks. In Spain, Operation Casablanca in 2013 led to 25 arrests, including Mallorca chapter leader Frank Harnebut, for drug trafficking and money laundering, though many were later acquitted. These crackdowns rely on evidence like seized drugs, e.g., 50 kilograms in Germany's 2000 raid, weapons, and convictions for murder and trafficking. Police also use wiretaps and informants to expose the club's hierarchy. In Denmark, 2023 raids targeted Hells Angels-linked drug smuggling at the port of Aarhus. The US bars foreign members from entering, citing their criminal designation. These actions have seized millions in assets and jailed key figures, but the club's global network remains resilient, often adapting through front businesses or allies. Rivalries and their role. The Hells Angels' rivalries with gangs like the Bandidos, Outlaws, and Mongols have fueled much of their violence, shaping both their image and police responses. These feuds, often over drug territories, have led to deadly conflicts. The Nordic Biker War's 11 deaths and Belgium's 2011 triple murder highlight the stakes. In Germany, ongoing clashes with the Bandidos have prompted raids and symbol bans. These rivalries make the Hells Angels a constant law enforcement target, as violence spills into public spaces, endangering civilians. Impact of reputation on operations. The Hells Angels' dual reputation, as rebels and alleged criminals, both helps and hurts them. Their outlaw image attracts recruits drawn to their defiance, boosting membership in places like Australia and Thailand. However, it invites intense scrutiny, with bans in Belgium and the Netherlands limiting their public presence. High-profile busts, like Operation Casablanca, expose their operations, making it harder to operate openly. Yet, the club adapts, using legitimate businesses to launder money and allies like the Red Devils to maintain influence. Their reputation fuels public fascination, evident in media and documentaries, but also ensures they remain a top priority for police worldwide. The club's defense: the Hells Angels staunchly defend themselves, insisting they're a motorcycle club, not a criminal empire. They argue that law enforcement exaggerates their crimes, using a few bad actors to justify targeting the entire organization. After bans and raids, they've taken legal action, like challenging the Netherlands' 2019 ban. They highlight their charity work and community events, claiming the 1%er identity is about freedom, not crime. But the mounting evidence, drugs, guns, and bodies, makes the defense a hard sell. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club stands at a crossroads of rebellion and infamy. Their history, from California's post-war roads to a global network, is marked by charity rides and alleged crimes like drug trafficking and murder. In the US, Denmark, Netherlands, South Africa, and beyond, they've faced relentless police crackdowns, from Belgium's ban to Spain's Operation Casablanca. Their rivalries with the bandidos and outlaws have left bloodstains, while their public image as riders clashes with their outlaw label. The Hells Angels insist they're misunderstood, but their reputation shapes their reality, keeping them in the crosshairs of law enforcement. Are they just a brotherhood chasing the wind, or a criminal empire hiding behind chrome? The truth may lie somewhere in between.